on the last podcast, I shared with you how Elon Musk is now predicting that AI may exceed human intelligence in 5 years, reaching what they call super intelligence. And in a recent interview, he goes on to say that humans will not be in control in 10 years' time. So my question to you is this the future that you want? Are you interested in acquiescing your life to robots? Better yet, is this what God intended when he said what he said in Genesis 1:26? Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Having robots in charge is truly not what God intended. You know that. I know that. And when man's intentions do not align with God's, we get a world where man is no longer being governed by spiritual law, but governed by his own will. And this ultimately leads to destruction. Whenever we are outside of God's law, we are outside of God's will. And so we must prepare ourselves, right? We must be prepared at all times to counter what the enemy has intended for evil. This is not just a new phenomenon. The destruction of humanity is truly the devil's MO. He came to kill, steal, and destroy. That is why he exists, right? And so these podcasts are not about doom and gloom, but it's about what are we going to do to anchor ourselves and arm ourselves as Christians as we truly prepare ourselves for 2030 or 2036 or whatever the year might be when superintelligence arrives. But as far as I'm concerned, superintelligence has already arrived, and his name is the Holy Ghost. And he is the only one that we need to guide our steps as we enter a new era of what the world is calling superintelligence. Welcome to another episode of the Holy Politician Podcast. So Elon Musk claims that we're entering an age of abundance. Take a look at this clip.
At a more prosaic level, what will life be like?
The most likely outcome is an age of amazing abundance, where anyone can have anything they can think of. This may sound preposterous, but well, here we are in 2026. Let's see where we stand in 2036. Now, of course, there are things that could derail this, like a massive global thermonuclear war or something like that. But assuming that there's not World War III, I think we're headed for an age of amazing abundance. So this is, I guess, a message of optimism and excitement about the future.
So let's unpack this a bit, right? What does an age of amazing abundance look like in a world where robots are in charge by the year 2036? And so with the advent of artificial intelligence in general, this is what we've seen. This is what we've been learning. When I say we, I mean just regular or normal people like you and me, right? If you see a news clip pop off or some kind of new notification about what we're learning about AI, this is one of the things that we've learned. According to MIT, there is a cognitive decline in human intelligence when people rely on large language models to assist in writing their essays instead of them using their brain alone to develop the essay. In their research, they say, quote, while large language models often offer immediate convenience, our findings highlight potential cognitive costs. Over 4 months, large language models users consistently underperformed at neuro, linguistic, and behavioral levels, which means that after you use a large language model like a ChatGPT or a Grok or a Claude, which are large language models, after you use these to do your work primarily and to write essays, which are supposed to be thoughts coming out of your own mind by your own intelligence, you start to underperform at the neural level, the linguistic level, and at the behavior level. That to me doesn't sound like an age of abundance, right? Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, used an interesting term that I heard on a recent interview. When asked what scares him the most about his own technology, which is ChatGPT, he replied, cognitive atrophy, which is basically a fancy word for saying that, well, people would just become dumber by using my tool. So by using his technology that he's creating, which is supposed to save lives, it's supposed to create all these amazing inventions, it's supposed to make medicine more predictive, it's supposed to do all of these incredible supernatural otherworldly capabilities by saving time, saving more lives, saving money, reducing waste, but it's going to make people dumber, right? So if we think an age of abundance is one in which dumb people is a good thing, I don't consider that an age of abundance. I consider a lack of intelligence and a lack of moral aptitude and intellectual aptitude, that's a problem to me. That doesn't lead to an age of abundance. It leads to an age of decline, right? And so we've heard many of these AI juggernauts, if you will, say things like this. Take a look at this clip.
It's hard to reprogram your brain to, this change. Society will be able to have a level of output, food, medical advice, that won't require everybody to work like they do today. We'll have a choice. I mean, we can say that the machines shouldn't help with certain things. We can confine them to certain areas if we choose to. But the reason you think about jobs is because of the shortages. Even that framing of how you think about the world won't really be the way to think about it.
Okay, so we're going to have a whole bunch of dumb people because we just talked about what cognitive atrophy is, which is this term that Sam Altman just throws out there. So we're going to have a whole bunch of people suffering from cognitive atrophy not working. So tell me, how on earth is this going to benefit society, right? We can already refer to some slums all over the world in certain areas, but there are low income people that have struggled already from cognitive atrophy because their literacy rates are super low, right? And if they don't have high literacy rates, they can't read, they can't comprehend, they don't know what metacognition is, they don't have the ability to use critical thinking skills, analytical skills, they can't even function coherently in a society where they need to do a job that requires them to have some form of reading comprehension. And them not working doesn't lead to better outcomes. It leads to more crime. It leads to more domestic violence. It leads to a lack of parenting. It leads to more dependency on the government and on the state. So how does that benefit our society? How does this look like an age of abundance? I guess we need to ask Elon Musk, an age of abundance for who, right? Which group of people is he referring to when he talks about this amazing, foreign to me concept, except for when you are a believer, and God says that we should have life and life more abundantly, but we don't live in a place where the vast majority of people actually believe in God's word and believe his truths. And so this age of abundance cannot apply to everybody, right? So I want you to watch this clip from Tristan Harris. He's one of the few sane people that I've ever seen talk about artificial intelligence, and I actually think he has prophetic intelligence on this specific issue. Watch this clip.
We're about to disrupt millions of jobs without people having a new alternate economic future. That's going to create so much economic anxiety that we can't just roll out AI and destabilize society and overwhelm society. Right now, the logic is if I don't race to deploy AI faster than the other companies or countries, then my country will lose. That's why we're not regulating AI, because we have to beat China. But that's the wrong logic. The logic is if I'm not as good at harnessing and mitigating the risks of AI, then I'm going to lose to the countries that are better at mitigating the risks of AI. So instead of it's a race to deploy the technology, it's a race for who's better at governing the technology in a way that doesn't self-undermine your role. Because the United States beat China to social media. Did that make the US stronger or weaker? It's like beating someone to a weapon that you just use to shoot your own foot. You're not actually going to be a stronger country because you have the technology first. It's about how do you wield the technology.
Instability is exactly what we will have if people are not working, okay? Now, I'm not saying everybody's not going to be working, but if you don't upskill yourself, retool your skill sets, you're not going to be working. Or you're going to be doing a job that is very meager and well below your capacity mentally. It's not going to align with your purpose. So instability is what will take place if people don't start to raise their hands, get involved, and ask questions, right? And if people aren't working, by the way, what on earth are they going to be doing with their time if they're not working? And yet they need money to survive. Does that mean that more and more people are going to be dependent on the government? Is that the answer for what we want to see in the next 5-10 years? I don't think that's the answer, right? And a former Trump official said it best, I think, which is that this issue is a national security issue. Because if there is a significant disruption in society, that's a security issue domestically, it's a security issue globally, right? But not only that, but it's a spiritual issue that the church has to help educate people about. We have to make sure that people understand that life is not going to be the same, because you can just get on a device, your phone, you can create anything you want within 5 minutes time. People are having these technologies do their work, write reports, do things that used to actually require a little bit of cognition, well, a lot of it of human cognition to be able to just deploy your thought process around all of these phenomenon, right? So our conversations need to shift. How should we help level up the skill sets of our people so that they can have a job that's going to be relevant in the next 5 to 10 years, right? Then how can we actually ensure that for the first time in their lives, they not just have a job that's relevant, but they have a rainy day fund. They have the resources that they need to be able to survive in this age of supposed abundance. And so on the next podcast, I want to share some research from a global organization that has forecasted specific statistics, outcomes, and data around what is the future of jobs and the economy going to look like in 2030. So we're going to talk about that, take a look at it, and I'll say it loud and I'll say it proud again and again and again and again and again, and until I turn purple or blue or whatever Black people turn. This is the issue of our lifetime. Not only is salvation the most important thing that we need to be warning people about, this is the most important issue outside of that. And so we need to help people pivot, and we need to help them prepare. Thank you for watching.